Oh, howdy all, grab yourself a beer, it's time for some Path of Exile discussion. So today I wanted to outline the changes that I've made as I've been playing the Lightning Trapper, as there's been a few changes that were made as we found that the damage was a little bit low at endgame. Now the real reason that my damage was low was that I'm a critical strike build, but I wasn't critting enough. I was finding that a lot of my damage investment in crit multi was not paying off at all. So we had to fix that, and the solution that we found to fixing it was to go with alternate ailments, which was always part of my plan as an option, and then I just decided that I definitely needed to go down that route. So when I did this, I acquired alternate ailments through the use of this Phoenix Raw Alternating Scepter. This dropped exactly as is in Heist, except for obviously that benchcraft that's on it. And so it is tier 3 lightning dispels, +1 level of lightning spell skill gems, critical strike chance, a tiny bit of critical strike multiplier, albeit a bad roll. And really it's quite a good item, but the main reason we're using it is that Secrets of Suffering implicit. I needed to get that somewhere on the build. There's a couple of other options I could have, but they'd all require heavier investment. And this one was the one that was ideal for me. So what Secrets of Suffering does is it removes all of your ability to shock, to chill, to freeze, and to ignite from your character, and replaces it with the alternate ailments. My critical strikes now inflict Brittle commensurate with the cold damage that they deal. They inflict sap commensurate with the lightning damage that they deal, and they inflict Scorched commensurate with the fire damage that they deal. The main reason we're using this item is Brittle, and that's because Brittle is essentially, if you get a high number on it, and I'll demonstrate while we're fighting these monsters here, if you hit something hard with it, you'll find that they'll end up with a -15%. That was very briefly visible on that monster there, that it was -15%, and that means that it's Brittle. Any skill you use that attempts to critically strike that enemy has 15% increased base crit, which is just crazy. And these are all at 15% Brittle as well. Mostly against bosses, I'm hitting around 8% Brittle, and that's still crazy as well. That's like 130% more critical strike chance. And so that's just making it so that all of my critical strike problems are solved. So that's the first thing that we did. We weren't doing enough cold damage to take advantage of that, and so I'm using Call of the Brotherhood. Now this is not yet qualityed, so this Call of the Brotherhood is providing 40% lightning to cold conversion. This means that instead of my lightning spire trap dealing 100% lightning damage, it's now dealing 60% lightning, 40% cold. I'm actually going to quality it now to 48%. That will be something that I've just got to get around to doing. I haven't done yet. I do need, however, to keep that conversion under 50%. And part of the reason for that is that we are using a Wave of Conviction setup, and Wave of Conviction needs to be mostly applying lightning damage, otherwise we end up losing some damage. Now we're dealing a hybrid of lightning and cold damage at this point, and that means that lightning penetration support is now a terrible support gem. So I was going to use elemental penetration, and then I remembered Shroud of the Lightless exists. Shroud of the Lightless is actually a really good item that everyone forgets about all the time because it's so niche. It's only a good item if your build is using both cold and lightning damage, or doing 2 elements or even 3 elements simultaneously. But when you are in that situation, Shroud of the Lightless is great. Socketed gems are supported by level 25 elemental penetration, which is considerably better than the level 20 elemental penetration support you can get. Even if you get perfect quality on that elemental penetration support, that would be quite a bit worse. So that makes it into effectively a 6-link. It's got 5 links inherently, and we are using Ink Crit Damage, Inspiration, Trap and Mind support, Advanced Traps, and Lightning Spire Trap. And we also have a spot for a quite bad at the moment Abyssal Jewel in there. And that Abyssal Jewel just gives it some flat life, but it also has 10% increased maximum life, then another 1% from the increased life and mana per Abyss Jewel affecting you. So yeah, Shroud of the Lightless, really good item. Next, we have a couple of things that were done to address reservation issues. Firstly, the helmet. I was able to pick up an Alphys Howl with the Lightning Trap Pierce mod on it for 1 Exalt. That was pretty cheap, and I'm sort of surprised that this was on the market, but there were actually 2 of them for the same price, so that's fine. This was really good. I am really happy with this helmet. 16% increased mana reservation efficiency is great. It frees up so much extra mana reservation, lets me run level 20 clarity, in addition to all of the essential auras on the build. So I have Skitterbots linked to Unbound Ailments, I have Determination, I have Grace, I have Clarity, and I have Defiance Banner. Very important note, Skitterbots is, even though I am not able to inflict chill or shock due to having Secrets of Suffering allocated, so you can see that I cannot ignite, chill, freeze, or shock according to Secrets of Suffering, that does not apply to my little Skitter Boys. So the Skater Boys are going around inflicting a medium strength chill and shock, and then that is scaled up a little bit by Unbound Ailments. So that's great as well. So Alpha's Howl is sitting Determination, the Skitterbot setup, and Grace at the moment. I could always change that around and put in Defiance Banner and put in my Clarity there. I'd rearrange a few things if I wanted to. Otherwise, my boots are still terrible, but they just have a few things going for them that are sort of okay. I need to just put more Veiled Chaos Orbs into these and just eventually roll something that's good. But for the moment, this is doing the job just. It's got Decoy Totem, which is really, really important defensively. Decoy Totem is just so good. Then we have Defiance Banner, which is even better. And we have our Cast When Damage Taken Molten Shell setup. Now, something that caught me out on this. Molten Shell is +1 gem level because I have an Exalter's Amulet. So +1 to the level of all skill gems. That actually pushed my Molten Shell up from level 4 to level 5, which then in turn increased the mana cost. I prefer having my Molten Shell cost the minimum amount of mana possible, and so I'm keeping the gem as a 3/20. I want 3/23. I don't currently own 3/23, so I'm using 3/20 as a substitute for that. That then keeps its mana cost 8 base, times 250% for cast when damage taken for 20 mana. I prefer that over the option of spending 22 mana for a gem level of 7, or spending 25 mana for a gem level of 10, which would be the other options. But that said, by all means, experiment with that. And lastly, I am primarily doing killing heavier targets through Lightning Spire Trap, and so my Lightning Trap is set up in a way that it has the Charge Trap support set up on it. Charge Traps is interesting in that it provides you with a considerable number of Power and Frenzy charges, which then increase your critical strike chance against other enemies. So that's something that is really useful. Anyway, that's the state of the build at the moment. How do I feel it's going? The damage against bosses is like serviceable. It's not going to kill bosses before you can see what's going on. It will improve as gear improves, but it's still not something that I would say is an amazing boss killer. And as it turns out that the Seismic Trap builds were barely nerfed at all, they are generally the stronger of the trappers for killing bosses. However, if you want something that's a bit different, Lightning Trap is still certainly working. It's having a bit of trouble with one thing that I hadn't foreseen, and that is maps that have 60% reduced effective auras on you as a debuff. That is pretty fiendish. That's in red tier maps, and really does mess you up quite a bit because so much of your defense comes from your auras. So at the moment, with all my auras on, I'm walking around with a 35,000 evasion and 14,000 armor. And that means that my Ghost Shrouds are instantly recovering all my energy shield at the moment. So that's a huge amount of extra defensive power that we've got. And then on top of that, we've got the Molten Shells, which are providing like several thousand ablative damage shields when they go off. So that's something that's really solid. I may get rid of my current Granite Flask and replace it with a Phasing Flask because most of my deaths are being caused by not being able to path through enemies. So I get body blocked and then I get killed while I'm body blocked. That's the main thing that is killing me, and so if I did replace that with phasing, that would be an option. Lastly, I'm considering using a Light of Lunaris as a shield. It provides an enormous amount of offense at the expense of having very little defense. It does still have 145 energy shield on it. It gives a whole chunk of cold damage to spells. It gives a whole bunch of critical strike to spells and critical strike multiplier. Both stats that I feel like I could do with a lot more of. And so ultimately, that's the current state of where we are at the moment. I am toying with the idea of possibly sitting on this build for a few days, like going and playing something else and then coming back to it later. But I do think it's worth saying that it is certainly holding up defensively once you get all of those auras together, because I was real squishy for a while, but Defiance Banner was the missing piece of the puzzle. Getting the Sovereignty Amulet Anointment enchant, and then once I had Sovereignty, using that to add Defiance Banner into the package made me feel so much tankier. That's all I got. May Evolves have interesting results.